Hello and welcome to today's VMware webcast. Before we get started, there are a couple of housekeeping items that I would like to go over. First, we want to make this session as interactive as possible and encourage you to ask questions at any time using the question and answer box located to the left of the slides window. You can also use the question and answer box to get technical assistance if you should need it. The tabs located in the question and answer box are where you can find additional information about today's presentation. Today's presentation features streaming audio only, so there is no need to dial into a teleconference. You'll need to make sure that your computer speakers are turned up in order to hear the presenter and today's content. You can also fine-tune the audio by using the volume controls inside the media window. This presentation console allows you to interact and customize the layout to fit your viewing needs. You can collapse and expand any window on the console just like you would on your desktop by dragging the corners in or out. In addition, you can also maximize or close any of the windows on your screen by clicking the corresponding icon in the upper right-hand corner of each of the windows. At any time, you can reset the console to the default layout and access additional presentation functionality using the widgets at the bottom of your screen. Now, I'd like to turn things over to today's presenter to get things started.
Hello everyone, my name is Andrea Siviero. I'm a Principal Architect at Professional Services Go-to-Market. With me today, I have Christophe Lombard, Senior Customer Success Architect, and we are going to talk about how to seamlessly scale capacity and extend your data center to the VMware Cloud on AWS. The agenda for today will be Christophe talking about the business context, going with a high-level overview of the use cases, and then deep dive on the extent of your data center use case. And then I will cover the professional services later. Christophe, up to you.
Thanks, Andrea. So let's start our conversation by talking about the current trends, which are currently happening for many organizations. So many organizations are extending their on-premises environment to the cloud. They need additional capacities without investing in very complex data centers. They may also need to extend their footprint, IT footprint, without investing in an on-premises data center. They may need also to access on-demand capacity of their requirements for seasonal demand spikes, for instance, or for specific applications. It's been a lot of concern during the pandemic for healthcare, for instance. Sometimes also some of the users require to spin up a temporary environment for a particular usage, like dev test or trainings. And in many cases, it's about to reduce their IT infrastructure costs and operational costs. If we look at the drivers on the business requirements perspective, the current trend for enterprise is to embrace the digital transformation. Digital transformation means for the businesses that they're going to need for higher agility and accelerated innovations. So they require the IT to deliver application modernization. So in order to do this application modernization of on-prem applications, they probably need to have this hybrid application deployment model. And this is also one of the capability of VMC on AWS to offer this hybrid model of application deployment. Obviously, now those organizations who want to leverage hybrid cloud are facing a lot of pain points and roadblocks. First of all, they have some problems with interoperability between their on-premises data center and the cloud, because the cloud is delivered on a different type of platform with a different operational model, which is required to operate this new model. So most of the companies may have an operating model that needs to be adapted, specifically for the IT organization. They may have to retrain their workforce. They may also have to change the tooling and processes to be able to operate this new hybrid cloud model. In addition to that, most of the companies have differences in terms of, let's say, security and governance policies when it comes to manage the public cloud infrastructure. And there is also a lack of support for the bidirectional application mobility, because sometimes the format of the workloads that runs on the public cloud is different from the one which is running traditionally on the on-premises data center. So all of those pain points are going to increase the complexity, the time, the risks, and the cost of such an IT transformation. We have been seeing Enterprise Strategy Group, which reported that it would take 7 years for a business to migrate hundreds of applications, because roughly it takes 70 days on average to refactor and migrate an application to the public cloud. So, as well as there are also other numbers coming from this study that reported that 85% of the companies are reporting skill shortage. So there is a lot of challenges, a lot of let's say transformation to embrace, and a lot of companies are developing a cloud strategy in order to address all of those pain points. Let's talk about the benefits of VMware Cloud on AWS. So VMware Cloud on AWS is proposing a seamless migration of workloads. It's a fast and cost-effective solution that could be delivered in less than 2 hours. It's delivered as a service, so it's on-demand capabilities to deliver that services. It's a subscription model that customers can consume the service. They have 1 year or 3 year subscription model. It brings consistency because the VMware Cloud on AWS runs the same VMware SDDC technologies as on-prem. Basically, the companies that are already running VMware technology will not be lost, and they will keep leveraging the same tooling and functions. VMC on AWS as well, through this hybrid model and HCX mobility platform, will allow for a smooth workload migration. So in that cases, customers can move back and forth their workloads from on-premises to the data centers without having to re-IP any of the workloads, without having to re-platform or refactor the workloads. So we have seen a lot of customers today that have migrated thousands of workloads without having to re-IP or refactor any of the application in less than 6 months. So it's very compelling event. And the latest one is the capabilities that VMC has to run modern application, not only traditional workloads, but as well as containers-based workloads and Kubernetes solutions. And it gives also direct access to cloud-native services, which is a real value for customers who are embracing this digital transformation. So VMware Cloud on AWS is a jointly engineered cloud services that has been developed jointly with AWS. So AWS is providing the underlying global infrastructure as well as the bare metal host, on top of which VMware deploy the SDDC technologies. So a stack where you will find vSphere for compute, Vsan for storage, and NSX as a network engine. So this network engine offers multiple features, networking and security features. We offered multiple topologies like native topologies, rooted topology, isolated. In terms of the security features, we offered distributed firewall. We offered gateway firewall and all of the advanced security features that already exist on-prem for NSX. This solution is directly, connected to AWS services to a native VPC that customers is giving us prior to the deployment. This is the high-speed connectivity, which allow for the hybrid application model deployment. And customers through this connectivity can leverage all of the native AWS services, including S3, for instance. So we are seeing a lot of customers leveraging that as a repository for backup, as well as relational database services for like RDS for database, high-end database support. On the other hand, there are a ton of connectivity options to attach on-premises data centers to the VMware Cloud on AWS. On that aspect, we support IPsec VPN, could be root-based VPN, or could be traditional policy-based VPN, as well as Direct Connect, which is AWS features for direct connectivity, high bandwidth connectivity, less jitter, less latency, and gives the customer the ability to extend their network automatically without any pain points and without having the feeling of any latency. Let's talk a little bit about the use cases that VMware Cloud on AWS is covering. So first of all, disaster recovery. So we are seeing a lot of customers leveraging VMware Cloud as a secondary data center for disaster recovery purpose. Obviously, it's less of a pain point because it's a possibility to deploy it very fastly, very quickly, without having to invest in a new data center. So replacing a current direct disaster recovery site is a must for VMware Cloud on AWS. Second one is the data center extension. So meaning customer may want to first extend the IT footprint to a new data center without having to deploy a brand new data center or without having to extend his own data center because it's somehow very complex and costly. Also, sometimes the businesses requires that additional services have to be delivered on new region or new, part of the globe. So obviously, cloud services are available all over the world. So it's easier for a customer and IT organization to deploy that kind of solutions without having, to build a new data center. We have seen also during the pandemic a lot of customers leveraging VMC on AWS to deploy virtual desktops for remote workers, so very quickly, as well as publish applications to those customers over the virtual desktops running on VMC on AWS. Third use case is the cloud migration and cloud, let's say, consolidation. So a lot of customers want to get rid of the costs implied by running their own data center. So they're going to consolidate their data center to one data center in the cloud, and they're going to totally move all of their workloads to this target. So for an infrastructure point of view, they can get rid of all the debt, the technology debt, and they can consolidate the cost in one OPEX model and get rid of the CAPEX approach. And the latest one that we are seeing more and more is the capabilities that VMC offer for developing next generation applications, so meaning cloud native applications. We were talking about this digital transformation that was requiring the adaptation of the application portfolio and to modernize the applications by leveraging this hybrid model and leveraging new cloud services. So let's focus on the data center extension capabilities and benefits. So VMC on AWS offer this consistent infrastructure and operation. So seamless application portability. Obviously, we have the same platform running on-prem and in the cloud, which is the VMware SDDC technologies. So you will get this familiar vCenter-based management, single pane of glass to manage both on-prem and in the cloud from the same window, the same console. We support as well all the vRealize brand solutions, including vRealize Log Insight and vAIROps for managing both the cloud and on-prem environment. When it comes to infrastructure, so you can spin up an SDDC in less than 2 hours. So very quickly you can deploy your environment. And when it comes to scalability, you can add a host in less than a minute to your, on your SDDC running already in the cloud. So what you also get on the infrastructure perspective is the protection and high availability of all of your workloads, as well as of your host. There is a protection also at the AZ level if you go on deploying a stretch cluster. We're going to talk about that in the following slides. And you get the predictable and high performance compute with all of the stacks, the vSphere compute stacks. In terms of the benefits, obviously, we already talked about that, but you can expand seamlessly your on-premises data center to the cloud. You have a capability to scale rapidly and quickly, adding new capacity. And you minimize as well the revamping on your on-premises workforce because you don't have to learn new products or new skills or new tools. There is a recent study talking about the economic impact of VMware Cloud on AWS, and we are seeing customer savings up to 59% in infrastructure and operation cost, and we are also having some customer reaching up to 59% as well of saving in staff costs. So very interesting, benefits for VMware Cloud on AWS. Let's talk about one of our customer who was, embracing this transformation. So Westminster Plainsboro Regional School District. It's a groupment of 10 schools that addressing 10,000 of students and professors, so a lot of users. Their main requirements was to move to the cloud without refactoring anything. And they were also about to move all the infrastructure to a more flexible model for delivering the IT services. So after they moved to VMware Cloud on AWS, and they have migrated, thousands of workloads in that matter, they reduced their hardware cost and operation cost by up to 75%. So they were very, also interested by the fact that they could back and forth their workloads if they wanted to go back on-prem. And one of the features of VMware Cloud on AWS, it's offering this ability. So, and as well as from on-prem to the cloud, but as well as from one cloud provider to another cloud provider. So thanks to our H6 mobility platform, we can offer the customer to move from one hyperscaler to another hyperscaler without having to, replatform or change anything in their workloads. Very interesting also approach that we are, offering on the market, which is, unique on the market. When it comes to deploy VMware Cloud on AWS, so there are multiple options to go over. First, you have to choose for your region. You have to choose the cluster type, and we have two kinds of cluster. We'll see that just after. We have multiple host type as well, so we call it instance type. And then whenever you deploy your SDDC, you will also have to define some attributes on the storage perspective. And as this platform is running Vsan, you have the same kind of storage policy configuration that you have on-prem to decide how you would protect your workloads running on VMware Cloud on AWS. And lastly, you will have also to establish this connectivity, not only from on-prem to the cloud, but as well from VMware Cloud on AWS, and any AWS construct, could be a transit gateway, could be a VPC. And from the on-prem to the cloud, you have also multiple options we're going to talk about in the following slides. So let's talk about our regions. So we are adding more and more regions. We're now covering 17 regions, and we are adding 3 more probably this year. This means that we can propose multiple options to deploy services very close to our users. We can also imagine having one VMware Cloud on AWS running production environment and another one for disaster recovery purpose. We are seeing customers leveraging that approach. So very compelling event as well. What we are seeing as well is customers deploying their virtual desktops on multiple regions because they have a spread workforce. So very interesting to see that they can do that all over the world. And also something to mention there that stands out is that we are currently adding more and more compliance and security certification to be able to comply with all of the requirements of our customers. Specifically for Europe, we have GDPR, and we recently had BCI DSS support. So the VMware Cloud SDDC live inside an organization. The organization is a top-level construct within VMware Cloud on AWS, which owns one or more SDDCs. So we have 2 SDDC per org by default, but you can ask for more if you need it. In each of the SDDC, there is a collection of bare metal hosts on which the workloads are going to be running. You can have different flavors for the clusters. You can have 2 host clusters and up to 16 hosts per vSphere cluster. Only the first cluster will contain the workloads which are required for the management, including vCenter servers, NSX managers, any of the HX mobility platform appliances you want to deploy, as well as the business continuity and disaster recovery solutions like SRM or VCDR that also going to be deployed on this first cluster. The vSphere platform is based on EC2 host, and it's on top of that EC2 host that we are going to deploy the latest version of the ESXi hypervisor. It's also important to call out the fact that each SDDC is provisioned on the dedicated hardware. So as such, the billing is based on the hardware itself and not on the number of VMs that will run within the SDDC. So this means that customers pay for the hardware for as long as it is provisioned, and no matter how many or few VMs are deployed on top of that. So what problem are we trying to solve? So you may see customers that runs, some robust application portfolio on a standard cluster, and because they don't require more than 3 nines of availability. So in that case, the cluster is going to be deployed in a single availability zone within a region. But whenever a customer is asking for more critical workloads that requires 4 nines of availability, then we will propose to deploy the stretch cluster. And basically, a stretch cluster would deploy multiple hosts on 2 availability zones and be able to recover from a failure of complete availability zones by leveraging, VMware HA and restart all of the workloads on the currently remaining hosts that are still functional. So it's important as well to mention that a stretch cluster requires a region with at least 3 availability zones, because we are looking for having a third zone for the witness nodes of our Vsan cluster. So a Vsan stretch cluster is an active storage cluster, meaning that all of the storage capacity is mirrored over the 2 zones, and whenever there is a restart, you don't lose any data when availability zone is lost. If you look at the management and workload point of view, so the management will stay on the first availability zone, and the workloads are going to be spread over the 2 availability zones. So meaning it's an really active model where the workloads run on any of the availability zone you decide. You can obviously define some compute policy and make the workloads running on 1 availability zone if you wish, but this is the same capabilities you will have on-prem to spread the loads over the stretch cluster. We have 2 flavors of instance. We have i3 Metal and i3 EN Metal. Basically, the differences between i3 EN is that there is more cores, and hyper-threading is enabled by default on that kind of instances, so giving more CPU capacity. In terms of the RAM, i3 EN comes with 25% more memory. So we have 512 gigabytes on i3 and 768 gigabytes on i3 EN. And the i3 Metal is for general purpose application, I would say. Could be databases or could be any traditional workload, general computing, as well as virtual desktop. And for the i3 EN Metal, we tend to push it for storage-bound clusters. So meaning that the i3 EN, is proposing much more capacity in terms of storage, because it's 45 terabytes of raw storage, when the i3 Metal offers only 10 terabytes of raw storage capacity. So the host type is available for use for in a 3+ node or 2+ node and stretch cluster deployments. Obviously, there is no limitation. Only for the i3 EN Metal, you cannot deploy a 2-host cluster, so you have 3+ node stretch cluster. The storage is local to each of the ESXi host, bare metal host. So Basically, the total usage capacity of an SDDC is the function of the number of hosts in the SDDC, multiply the capacity of the instance you choose, and also a couple of variables. So let's talk about those variables. So as on-prem, you have to define the storage protection level. So you have the FTT, failure to tolerate, and you have the fault tolerance method, FTM, which is the red level that you're going to define. So red, by default, the cluster is coming with FTT1 and red one as a fault tolerance method. As long as you deploy an additional number of hosts, you will get access to red 5 and red 6. So you get red 5 whenever you deploy 4 hosts, and you can get red 6 whenever you've got 6 hosts. And whenever you've got 6 hosts, it's where you can define a failure to tolerate to 2. Only this possible with this number of hosts. So the Vsan storage policy apply to VMs. It could be many VMs, so multiple VMs at the same time. And this affects obviously the amount of overhead required to store the data. It's also possible to apply this policy to a single VMDK. And if you don't assign any storage policy to your workloads, the default storage policy will be applied to all of the workloads you deploy on those clusters. So it's a simple model, scalable model managed from vCenter that will allow you to protect more accurately each of your workloads on VMC on AWS. EDRS is another feature that we would like to point out in this presentation. It's an automation system that helps reduce some of the manual management of the SDDC. So it's a feature which enables SDDC to scale the cluster resource up and down based on its resource utilization, and this is an automatic process. So when you enable it, you will define a minimum and maximum number of hosts, meaning that, for example, if you don't want the SDDC to grow beyond 8 hosts, you will say, I don't want more than 8 hosts. And if you want to be able to shrink not below 4 hosts, you can specify those values. So this is the first attributes that you're going to be defined in the EDRS. And with EDRS, when the utilization, for instance, of the storage is constantly above one certain threshold, automatically we would add one host to the cluster. So depending of the policy you choose, so there are two kinds of policy that you can define there. EDRS will add a new capacity and remove capacity when the storage or CPU or memory requirements are getting lower. So this EDRS policy, there is a default one. It should be noted that VMware automatically will add SDDC host to the SDDC when storage is utilization crosses the 75% threshold. So there is always a default storage policy. You cannot remove any of the policy for EDRS. There are multiple interconnectivity options to attach your VMware Cloud on AWS to your on-premises environment. So we support IPsec VPN over internet. We support route-based VPN and policy-based VPN. So we tend to push route-based VPN because this is leveraging BGP for route summarization and route learning and advertisement. We also support AWS Direct Connect. So we support private VIF and public VIF. When it comes to leverage public VIF, then you have to establish a VPN from on-premises to these public VIF IP addresses. Basically, the public VIF is, landing in the public zone of AWS, and it's giving the capabilities to attach any of your on-premises gateway to the edge running on NSX on VMware Cloud on AWS. On the connectivity point of view, there is also one connectivity to AWS. So this is through the NSX and Elastic Network Interface. So this connectivity is established at time when you deploy the VMware Cloud on AWS. there is a process of establish this elastic network interface connectivity and gives direct access to AWS native services for hybrid purpose. In terms of the operations, there is a consistent model that leverage VMware Cloud Gateway Appliance. VMware Cloud Gateway Appliance is kind of a vCenter that's going to be deployed as an OVA on your on-premises environment. The vCenter Cloud Gateway Appliance will, link both VMware Cloud on AWS SSO domain and your on-premises Active Directory domain. And in that purpose, you can manage all of your vCenter on-prem and together with the vCenter on the SDDC from one single pane of glass. If you have two vCenters which are attached through enhanced link mode, ELM, then you can see all of the vCenter on premises as well as the vCenter in the cloud. And this also offers the capabilities to do a vMotion between your on-premises vCenters and the vCenters in the cloud to allow for workload migration. In terms of the operations, so we have this shared responsibility model. So VMware is offering the service access to customer support. So there are multiple ways to access and to talk to the customer supports. We have live chat, we have My VMware, and we have global support services. So we can offer through the CSP console direct access to the customer support. So very flexible way to access to the site reliability engineer that stay in the back end to support our customers. We have a security operations center for any security incident management, and we can inform in that matter very quickly our customers whenever there is an incident. And at the end of the lines, we have also service owners that are taking care of each of the products. So we are specialists in NSX, for instance, or HX, and they are well dedicated to each of the topics. Obviously, it's a managed services, so we manage as well all of the updates, upgrades, and patches of any of the SDDC stacks that is running on VMC on AWS. In terms of operations, so as I said before, we are offering two capabilities. We are supporting vRealize Log Insight. So we have a vRealize Log Insight cloud solutions, which is compatible with VMC. We have developed own dashboards and events and trends that supports our VMC on AWS deployments. We also support native management pack for AWS services. And we have also the capabilities to monitor HX, which is our mobility platform. So this is not only true for vRealize Log Insight, but also for vRealize operations. So out of the box, all of the products that you're currently running on-prem are compatible with VMC to be able to deliver seamless operations as well. Let's finish by our key takeaways for VMware Cloud on AWS. So obviously, we already said that it's offering a very high-speed way for delivering new capabilities as an infrastructure point of view. So you can spin up an environment in less than 2 hours, for instance. It's also offering on-demand pay-as-you-go model that allow the customers to move away from CapEx to OpEx. This on-demand consumption is also offered through subscription. You can subscribe to a 1 year or 3 years model of consumption, and it's a very flexible way to consume resources as you need them. The customers can embrace this digital transformation, as I said, by leveraging cloud native services, and this hybrid model will allow the customer to start their application portfolio modernization. All of the processes they are currently leveraging on premises can be reutilized as well as the security and governance policies. No need to change anything on that matter. And you can extend your on-premises infrastructure very seamlessly by leveraging our cloud mobility platform without having to change any of the IP address or without having to refactor your current portfolio. So you will probably limit a lot the risk to migrate your workloads. And that concludes this part of the presentations. I'm going to leave it now to Andrea to talk about the professional services that are associated with this IT transformation over VMC on AWS.
Thank you, Christophe. Okay, let's talk about professional services for VMware Cloud. Today, I want to talk about two major offers to help you to start consuming the VMware Cloud solution and extending your data center to the cloud. The first one is VMware Cloud Activation that covers the setting up of the SDDC, the starting the connectivity to the SDDC, and starting moving workloads to there. Also, the migration itself, if you are interested in starting to move a huge amount of virtual machine and physical workloads to the cloud, we're going to help you with that as well. But also, last but not least, to extend your data center, some of the customers are interested in implementing a disaster recovery as a service, right? So thinking about VMware Cloud as a new way to extend the existing disaster recovery solution into the cloud. So VMware Cloud Activation. VMware Cloud Activation is divided in mainly three parts. The first part is deploying and integrating the components that configure the networking setup from your on-prem to the cloud. So you will be able to extend your network into the cloud and starting consuming services available into VMware Cloud and AWS. Secondly, since you are going to extend your network, of course, we will be interested in see how the performance goes and how would be the methodology to migrate workloads to the cloud. So we're going to cover a small part of migration. Just we call it a pilot that will basically help you to validate some of your extensibility use cases. And then, of course, operate in the cloud, right? So this is a big picture where you see the overall architecture. On the left side, you have your existing data center that has comprehensive of a vSphere, a network solution. It can be NSXT, NSXV. It's not required to have any network layer of virtualization. So if you don't have NSX, no problem, right? You can extend your existing network running on vSphere using just simple VLAN and extending those network into the cloud. Or if you are not interested in to extend the network, you can still extend the capacity of your data center running new workload into the cloud and interconnecting the networking part of the cloud side with your on-premise side, right? Inside the VMware Cloud AWS, you will also access the tool that is called VMware ACX, the hybrid connectivity extension, and it will allow you to do any type of interconnectivity like layer 2 extension, vMotion, and migration between on-prem and the cloud side. Also, when you are going to activate the new SDDC and you're going to extend the data center, of course, a lot of integration with your existing environment. So think about extending your operativity, operation. So you're going to get more visibility into your new SDDC in the cloud. And as well, you're going to extend your automation use cases, right? So if you're using virtualized automation or cloud assembly in the cloud, then you can extend your use cases to the new SDDC. And this is all done as part of the activation. So we're going to activate the components needed for you to extend the data center. As I mentioned before, in the activation, we cover also a small part of the migration. It's not intended to be a full migration, but we want to give you an insight of what will be the methodology that you can use if you like, or we can implement later a full migration, right? So basically the migration pilot will cover a discovery analyze. So we're going to show you, for example, how to understand the relationship between VMs and how to group them in a way that can be moved into the cloud as safe as possible. Of course, with ACX, you can keep the layer 2 extension in place, and so you will not have any disruption, but still the bandwidth will be consumed, right? So a proper analysis is a good idea. And that's what the pilot is going to help you to understand how to do and how the methodology will work for you. This is basically the offering that we have for the activation. This is going from essential, standard, and advanced. Those three are SKU based, so in our price list. And then we have the enterprise, where basically you can define a tailored solution specific for your needs. So you can define different variables for the enterprise. The essential, standard, and advanced are all delivered remotely. They go from 1 week, 2 weeks, depending on the type of architecture, and then go to standard and advanced, where in the advanced, of course, we're going to cover a larger use case with 6 week length, an entire application discovery and dependency mapping, and also piloting for up to 15 VMs. The enterprise, of course, will cover all the other topics, including observability and automation, as I mentioned earlier. Let's cover a little bit the cloud migration as well. Again, when you're going to extend your data center, you will probably are in a process where you're going to consolidate your existing workloads or extending the SDDC because you don't have enough leftover capacity, so you want to consume more capacity from the cloud, right? So extending it to the cloud is another possibility. But in all of those processes, you are ending up to reorganize your VMs, your workloads across the on-prem and the cloud or different data center, and that's where the migration challenges can happen, right? So we are going to help you with these migration challenges. For example, understanding what will be the best migration sequences, what are the dependency mapping that I mentioned earlier. And we are also going to help you with the scale and speed, right? So we have a lot of people that are in this business for more than 20 years of migrating workloads and moving them across all the cloud, and we're going to help you to make the process as smooth as possible. So this is our methodology. Is divided in 5 main areas. First, we develop a strategy. We do an analysis of an environment. We create a detailed migration plan, and then we execute the migration plan and verify all the steps are implemented. But also, it's important for us and also for you to understand that when you're going to extend your data center into the new SDDC, you have to update your own standard operating procedure, right? So we're going to help you to understand, for example, how to update your RACI matrix, who is doing what in the cloud, right? Everything is changing. As Christophe mentioned it earlier, you have a different team that may be managing the cloud, and they have to integrate with your existing operating environment. So we are going to help you with that updates of the operating procedure as well. So yeah, as a professional services, we are here to set up you for success, right? So we are going to help you with our experts and adopting an holistic approach to consume the cloud. If you want to activate, if you want to migrate, or as we are seeing in a minute, if you want to also implement your disaster recovery into the cloud, right? So any cases, we are going to help you if needed. And again, you don't have to consume with us a full end-to-end migration. We are more than happy to just show you how to do it, and then you can do it by yourself or getting a help from partners. Or, as I mentioned earlier, if you are interested in an end-to-end key-turn solution, VMware will be able to do that as well. So this is the offering for the migration. Again, it's the same format as the activation. It's divided in 3 SKU base offering. This is the essential, the standard, and the advanced. And then you have the enterprise. That is basically a tailored solution. The number of workloads per package is going to 25, 60, and 100, up to 100. Of course, they can be stacked, so you can buy more packages to cover more VMs and more workloads. At some point, of course, I suggest to use the tailored solution, right? It will be more specific to your needs. But in general, if you are interested to just go on with the approach of the migration that you have seen the pilot, the SKU are a good fit and a good solution as well. So let's see a little bit more on the disaster recovery as a service. I have this separated because we introduced recently a new technology that is VMware Cloud disaster recovery solution as a product, but we cover the entire set of offering here. So the disaster recovery as a service from VMware allow you to really extend your existing disaster recovery plan that you have in place, probably on-prem, and extending this into the cloud, right? And this is part of the advantages of having a cloud, because you will be able to consume a disaster recovery site without spending too much money in actually keeping the lights on the disaster recovery side, because VMware Cloud Disaster Recovery now allow you to replicate the data, spending the money just for the data replicated in the cloud, and keeping a small pilot light activated in the cloud, and activating the full data center only when the disaster recovery happened, right? This is a huge saving in terms of money, and also will address a lot of challenges that customer had in the past, right? So the strategy and the methodology is pretty much the same as we have seen in the other scenarios. So we start with discovery. We start to define a strategy. Then we go with the discovery of the environment, we build a disaster recovery plan, and we execute the disaster recovery testing. As you see, there is a little box around the three steps in the middle, because those operations will happen every time you have a new application or a new product that is deployed in your organization. You have to go through that steps, right? So part of our services is also make sure that you are able to do that over and over, right? You don't have to call us every time, right? We want to teach you how to do it, so you will be able to do it over and over for any new application. But this is really important and key for cloud solution overall. And of course, as I mentioned before, we want you to operate the disaster recovery solution and update all the procedures that probably are already in place for disaster recovery, but thinking now in the cloud, how everything will be up together, right? So the discovery part for VCDR is really close to the migration part. So we do an analysis using a tool, in that case is Visualize Network Insight. And we do an application dependency mapping. So we analyze the traffic flow between VMs, and we tag VMs as a part of an application. And then we define a group of VMs that will be protected. And this protected group will become part of the DR plan. And you can define, for example, the sequences of different protection group, creating different disaster recovery plan. And it's important because then you can test every single disaster recovery plan separately, right? So every time you want to test, for example, a set of applications that need to work together, you don't have to do the entire disaster recovery testing for everything, but you just separate the different DR plan to be more precise on what you are testing. Yeah, and as I mentioned, so the DR testing is really key and one of the big advantages of disaster recovery as a service, because it helps you to reduce as much as possible the testing frequency, right? So actually increase the frequency and decreasing the time between two testing. So every time you do a test, you always find out that during the disaster recovery test, there will be a lot of drifting in your configuration that you need to update. Configuration files, procedure that need to be updated, network that was not part of the DR plan and now is there, right? Because everything changed. Every day, people do changes in your infrastructure and everything is dynamic. So you want to keep track of those changes. And also you want to make sure the DR plan will be successful when you're going to do that. So what's the best way to do that? Is not testing the DR just once a year, but testing it over and over, potentially once a month or once every 2 weeks, right? And in the middle, make sure that you are able to track all those changes using, for example, Visualize Log Insight or Visualize Operation to analyze the compliance and the difference of configuration, for example, and the drifting of configuration. So that's it. So in terms of professional services, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to help you. We are in the business of consulting customer, more than 30,000 customers across 115 countries, more than 20 years of experience. And in terms of coverage, we cover 84% of the Global Fortune 100. We have an NPS score of 66 for professional services, and we have an NPS score of 75 for TAM. I'm very proud to share those numbers because that means that customers are loving the way that professional services and TAM deliver to them, and those are really a good sign of how we work. I'm going to leave you with additional resources. So on the left, you have the VMware Cloud and AWS overall solution. I really suggest you to go with the Enzo Lab, are really interesting. So you can click and, testing the solution itself. Also, I have put here some link to the data center extension specific use case. There is a very nice practitioner quick guide that it can help you to cover all the aspects that Christophe and myself have covered during the presentation. And then there is the customer experience and success web pages where you can go and check, for example, the SKU data sheets and all the other services available, and customer experience success, for example, that can help you to succeed in your adventure. So thank you. And please, if you have any comment or question, please put it in the question and answer in the chat below. Thank you, everyone. Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello, hello. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, I
So
can
I
hear
don't
you.
see so much additional questions. Maybe we have someone on the line who wants to ask question. Uh,
Yeah, and yeah, maybe meanwhile, if I see that you answer a lot of questions, so maybe you want to summarize some of the one that you like most. Yes, you have
yeah, yeah,
some.
probably the network extension one is the most interesting because this is one of our most famous feature we have with HX mobility platform. So obviously, you may have tons of VLANs running on-prem, and you want to extend them to the cloud and be able to manage this migration seamlessly without having to re-IP any of your VMs and workloads running on-prem. And this is possible with HX. I can tell you, I've been working with a ton of customers doing that, and this is really helping customers move thousands of VMs, I would say, in a few time frame and without having to change anything in the IP. When we do this network extension, there are multiple options. You can choose to have the gateway, so by default on-prem, but you can also switch part of the gateway in the cloud. We call it mobility optimized network. This is allowing the routing between multiple VLANs you've been extending in the cloud to be, happening in the cloud, which is, reducing this airpining connectivity problem that may arrive. That's cool feature we also have on these solutions. And I see a solution. I see a question. Sorry
Yeah,
from Darren.
yeah, I can read. Yeah,
Um,
exactly. There is a nice
Layot,
question
you want
about.
to take it, Andrea?
Yeah, I can take it. Yes, thank you, Christoph. Yes, Darren, we can do layer 2 stretch network also for disaster recovery. It can happen through, as Christoph mentioned, using ACX, for example, or you can use NSX for doing it, right? So both are viable, and you can also do that on top of Direct Connect if you are interested in that, right? So it will be like double security, one on top of the other. So that's the
Probably
one.
I can add something on that one. Sorry, Andrea, to take
Go
it,
on.
because I'm currently working on a customer which is doing and planning this disaster recovery plan with VCDR, so the VMware disaster recovery solution, and is also leveraging H6 for the network extension. So in that case, it means that you can recover the VM in VMC on AWS on a pilot light, deployment, and the VMs can restart in the cloud and be able to communicate back to on-prem or to the other systems that are remaining without having to change the IP address. So also you can mix both of the solutions to build a complete DR plan. So together, VMC, H6, and VCDR.
Perfect. There was another question. It was like, can workloads running on VMware Cloud on AWS instance be integrated with any AWS services? That was the question. I think the answer is yes, in general.
Sure.
Of course, there are nuance, right? So VMC AWS is able to provide a private connectivity with the VPC. So you will have a privileged connectivity through an ENI connectivity into the AWS native services. So for example, it will be fantastic for S3 because you're not going to be even charged for the cross VPC traffic. It's typically also used for backup solution, right? So if you think about using VMware Cloud AWS, you will probably want to have a backup system running on the native AWS where you can store your backups over there, and because that traffic will not be charged, but also you can leverage other services. And of course, not all the services. So AWS has 1,000 probably services. So when it's not possible to route those those services through the private ENI, you can always route those services through the public ENI, right? So the answer again is yes. It will depend on the details and where you want to have the traffic routed. I don't know if Christophe, if you want to add some more details on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So for talking about storage, because there were also a question about that one, there are two things to consider there. One is related to host storage. So you can add storage to a cluster, or to a host that is part of a cluster by leveraging Vsan, for instance, as I said, which is a storage as a service approach. But if you want to add storage to workloads running on top of host, it's a different technical solutions that you should look for. And this is where we are looking for FSX, EFS, for instance. So FSX is more for Windows dedicated workloads, and EFS for Linux, and S3 as well. So they are more related, I would say, for workloads running in the VMC, and Vsan is more for the host itself. Just to be clear on that.
There is another question
from Darren again.
Yeah, it's about latency that we have seen in real life. I already answered to this question. Normally, customer using Direct Connect, I see always like 2 milliseconds, 10 milliseconds of latency from on-prem. That's what I've seen normally. It really depends where you are located inside the region, and what is the provider for the Direct Connect, right? How far you are, how far your data center is from the provider. But on average, I see very good numbers over there, right? I don't know if you have a different experience, Christophe.
No, exactly the same, 10 milliseconds. We are seeing some customers experiencing, some back and forth whenever you extend one VLAN and in the cloud, and you keep, let's say, one tiers of your application still on premises, then there is this connectivity sometimes which is experiencing some low, I would say, latency. Some latency, but it's not something that is preventing any production environment to work. So basically, what we tend to push is to have all of the tiers of the application migrated at the same pace or at the same time. And leveraging our mobility optimized network to get to have this cloud gateway to be able to do the routing between the tiers in the cloud directly. So we have seen customers obviously who still are running a big databases on a physical servers on-prem, and they started to move their, let's say, application tiers. So they can, in that case, experience a few latency, but it's never something that prevents the application to work. So, but there are some latency obviously over Direct Connect.
Yeah, I see also another question is about VMware Cloud AWS is deployed on a dedicated host. The answer is definitely yes. You have your own host.
Yeah,
it's a shared infrastructure, but the hosts are your own. Right, it's like they are not shared with customers.
Yeah, that's a good question anyway, because
inside one of those. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, as it is a SaaS service, it's a relevant question that you may be asking you, but because we have seen also some other providers who are offering a multi-tenant approach to deliver infrastructure, but there. The hosts are really dedicated to customers.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right. I think we still have 1 minute, I think. Anyone else, if you have the last minute question? Otherwise, you're ready to wrap up. Again, it will be recorded. Oh, here we go. Can customer bring your own license for VMware, or do existing on-prem licenses get binned? Do you want to answer to that, Christophe?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when it comes to Windows Server licenses, yes, you can do that. But we also offer the customer can also use directly VMware Cloud and AWS services and subscriptions to have those Windows Server license. But yes, if you have your own server license, then you can bring them into VMC on AWS. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I think we are top of the hour. Thanks again, everyone. The recording will be available soon, and the slide as well. I think they are already available. If you go under the resources tab nearby the Q&A, you will see the PDF that is already available for you to download. And thanks again. Thanks, Christophe. Thanks for the time.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.